Hi there guys, welcome back to my channel. So this week is part 2 of the hotel. If you're joining me from last week, then thank you so much for coming to hear the second part of this story. And if you haven't, I would invite you to go and watch part 1 before you watch this video, or if you're just here for relaxation purposes, then please do enjoy. So this is the hotel part 2. My eyes rolled painfully from the back of my skull and I woke up sprawled across a black velvet couch, pillows placed carefully around my body. As I moved my legs to help me get up, the pillows fell to the floor one by one. They thumped onto the carpet and I looked around to try and get my bearings. I was still in our hotel room. My toes glided over the luxurious carpet as I dragged them towards the door. I shuffled through broken glass and ripped up paperwork and reached out for the handle. Slightly perturbed that my last attempt to enter this room was met with the back end of a gun to the face. I firmly pressed down on the handle, but it didn't move. A couple more thrusts and I gave up. Head throbbing, feeling like it was ready to explode, I reached my hand up to my left temple and I could feel the heat from the swelling radiating onto my palm. I felt pain to my face from the mere proximity of my hand there. For a moment, I felt a lump in my throat, and it burned as I got ready to let out a cry. Then I remembered that she wouldn't want me to cry. She'd want me to get out. The Lord only knows where she is now. I looked out of the glass-panelled patio doors and rushed over carefully. As I looked out, still daylight, there were no cars or people anywhere. I began to wonder how long I'd actually been asleep. The patio door was locked, so there was no way I was getting out of here politely. I returned to the plush couch cushion and sat down for a minute, looking around to see what I could use to escape. My eyes fell on the chaos that littered the floor, and I couldn't help but wonder why they had even bothered to trash our room. They looked like they were in a rush the last time I saw them, even if it was only for a couple of seconds before my proverbial sleeping pill. All of a sudden, the door snapped open and a lock flew across the polished marble floor to join the rest of the rubble. A waterfall of long raven hair waved across the threshold, and in the wake of the broken door stood a tall, tanned woman. Her black military boots sent a rapture across the floor, boof, as she walked over to me. As I drew my eyes up her long, toned torso, she smiled down at me through 2 thick curtains of hair. "I hope you weren't thinking about sitting here all day." I was thinking about it. My mother had installed in me a superhuman patience during my younger years. Being an only child, my patience had to be strong and far-reaching at times. "Who are you?" I asked. "I'm the reason you're getting out of here without a jail sentence. Get up." She spoke in an almost military manner, and I listened. I stood to attention and was dwarfed under her height. She smelled musky but intensely pleasant. She took a look at my swollen face and tutted. "Lucky you missed your other eye." "Very lucky," I thought sarcastically. She grabbed my wrist and half dragged me out of the room behind her. "Shoes," she sighed, as I realised I wasn't wearing any. She looked at me expectantly and slightly disapprovingly. I looked around and saw my suitcase splayed out across the floor behind one of the couches. I strode over urgently and knelt down to open the top compartment of my suitcase. I saw a pair of trainers peeping out and I pulled them on one by one on the floor like a child. I looked back at my case and saw something peeping out in amongst the mess. An old classic Nokia was nestled in amongst my belongings. "You're not on holiday anymore," my new acquaintance reminded me insistently. I grabbed it out of the mess and shoved it into the cup of my bra. We walked out of the room and down an emergency staircase in the far end of the hallway. We bounded down the stairs side by side. Still not knowing where I was going, I stayed wary. not least because I could barely see out of one of my eyes. Now, bursting through a service door, the smell of sulphur and sweat filled my nostrils. Entering the ghost town outside, I was shocked to see no civilians around. A few police officers dressed in black were milling around the once beautiful square outside. Smoke spiralled consistently from the corners of the building. Interrupting my moment of astonishment, I heard a loud click and metal clanging. I turned to see the tall Amazon barricading the emergency exit. On the final clash to the door, the police officers were alerted to our presence. Within a heartbeat, they were all crashing towards us at breakneck speed. My arm disarticulated from my torso as my tall friend whipped me around to run behind her twice as fast as they were. We weaved through a small side street, hands gripped together and sweating profusely. She dragged me into a service hatch in the back of a restaurant. Our bodies were pressed tightly together. She pushed her hand over my mouth and I looked at her, eyes and nose streaming. We waited in complete silence as they caught up to us. Well, why were they still in there? I thought we swept the whole building. We did. Were they there when the bomb went off? I suddenly realised that the phone wedged in the cup of my bra was not left in my suitcase as a mistake. It was a detonator. Panic flushed over my face and I looked up at my accomplice in pure fear. My body was stiff and I was not willing to move an inch. As the officers inched away, her body relaxed against mine and she slowly dropped her hand that was covering my mouth to her side. She looked at me, scared for the first time. Have you got something to tell me, Juliet? I fumbled with my jumper and pulled out the small, suspect phone. As I looked into her eyes, I saw a little piece of her die. Her spark faded and she let out a long exhale. Oh. We stumbled slightly out of the little cubbyhole. Looking left and right, we left off in the opposite direction the officers came from. As we edged closer to the square, I heard a rumbling engine and saw a large granite truck driving past slowly. The back of the truck was encased in wooden slats with thin slithers between them. I searched with my eyes over the gaps and saw a flash of caramel hair and knew it was Carla. Without a second thought, I ran towards the truck, thrashing the sides of my fists against the wood and screaming her name. Carla! Carla! I screamed. Juliet, get out of here! My lips brushed against the splintered wood as I got as close as possible to hear her. Carla, I need to get you out. I started, grabbing onto the side of the truck and climbing up. As I got onto the top and threw myself onto the tarp covering the trailer, it sped off. I grabbed the edge of the thick grey tarpaulin and pulled it away from the edge. I saw Carla looking up at me from the dark in amongst about 10 other bodies. I flipped over and aimed my feet towards the hole and wiggled down through the space. When I reached the floor on the inside, Carla grabbed me and took me into a desperate embrace. She pulled away from me slowly and said, "What's that?" I slid out the phone, now in my top pocket, and held it in my hand to show her. Her eyes widened and posture dropped, like a sack of potatoes, in pure disappointment. I mirrored her body language and sighed. Yeah. So, I hope you enjoyed the second part of The Hotel. I'm not going to say it's over quite yet because I think Carla and Juliet have some more things to do in this story. I don't think they're finished yet. But thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video please give it a like and subscribe if you like my stories, and come back next week for another adult bedtime story. Bye guys.